Hey guys, happy new year. It's Pete and B2 coming at you here to talk about the craziness going on at the Australian Open 2022 starting off. Hey, the one good thing about this besides there being so many bad things is it's capturing the world's attention. Tennis is capturing the world's attention, maybe not in the best way, but I thought, hey, let's come on in. Let's talk about it. Really want to get your input on what you guys think about what's happening with Novak Djokovic. Number one, do you think he should be allowed to play? Number two, do you think he's going to be able to play? That's two separate questions. Do you think that he should be allowed to play in light of everything that's happened? And number two, do you think he's actually going to play, or is he going to lose this appeal? So let's get right into this. I'm going to tell you what I know. And right off the bat, I'm going to fully admit I probably don't know everything that's going on. I think that a lot of us don't know everything that's going on. That's what's so confusing about the entire situation. As you guys come on in, definitely say hello and let me know what you think. Weigh on in if you have the courage to do so. And I'm going to give you my opinions and thoughts, and let's try and keep this a respectful dialogue. They're just opinions and thoughts. That's all there is. And so, as you guys know, for quite a while, Novak has not been comfortable getting the vaccine, has said he's not going to get the vaccine. But obviously, how do you think the viewership will be without any of the three? Rafa's playing, right? I think Rafa's playing. Anyway, please tell me Rafa's playing. I mean, Rafa's been playing in the. Please tell me Rafa's playing. Okay, so Novak wants to play the Australian Open, obviously, for obvious reasons. He owns Australia. He's going for his 10th, if you can believe that, 10th time to win the Australian Open. And if he's able to do that, then he would go to 21 majors. He'd have 21 majors. That would put him in the lead as the GOAT when it comes to Grand Slams. Okay, that's a fact. And Novak, his best chance, you'd have to say, is at the Australian Open, since he's won it 9 times. So this is where he wins, the majority of his Grand Slam tournaments, although he's pretty, spread out evenly throughout on all. He's done very good at Wimbledon. He's done very good at the U.S. Open. The French Open, Rafa owns that, so he's only got one of those. But the Australian Open is kind of like, his French Open, if you're comparing Novak to Rafa and how dominant he is there. Okay, so that's number one. Wants to play, not vaccinated. Number two is the Australian Open. Australia, the country, they have been pretty tough with their COVID restrictions, regulations, who's allowed in the country, what they're allowed to do. You remember all last year at the Australian Open, sometimes they'd be playing in front of empty crowds, then like half crowds. And then by the end of the tournament, they had almost a full crowd, which was, really cool to see. Okay. But they're very strict with the rules. And I respect that. It's like, hey, in my house, if you come to my house, you can wear your sneakers and you can walk around the house. I don't have a problem with that. But if I go to somebody else's house and they say, you have to take off your shoes, I want to keep my carpets clean, I respect that. It's like when in Rome. So the people of Australia have had to abide by these restrictions. It's been able to keep their numbers down really low. So, it's an opinion. What's right thing? What's the wrong thing to do? But facts are facts. Numbers are numbers. They've been pretty tough on it, and therefore they have low COVID numbers. So a lot of the Australian people are saying, hey, why should Novak be allowed to play here when we live here and we have been abiding by the rules, and rules are rules. And, we don't think it's fair that just because this guy's awesome at tennis and wants to hold the record, that he can come here without being vaccinated and play. I understand that as well. So what Novak did was he applied for a medical exemption. Now, this is where, if anybody has any kind of insight, anything to enlighten me, what the heck does this mean? What is a medical exemption, and why, if the Australian uh, rules are so rigid, saying, hey, look, if you're not vaccinated and you're out of the country, you can't play, why would they even have an exemption in the first place? That's my opinion. Like, if you're going to be strict with this, then why even open up this little loophole? My opinion is, if you're going to lay this law down, which Australia has the right to do, then why leave any room for weirdness and interpretation? But somehow they did. And Novak applied for this medical exemption and he got it. So they said, okay, you can come play, Novak. You're allowed to play. I mean, you can't blame Novak for trying to play and to put in the medical exemption request. I don't fault him for that at all. And he got approved. Then he shows up to Australia getting the medical exemption. And when he checks in, all of a sudden he's detained. And they say, you can't, your visa's no good because it shows that you're not double vaccinated. It's like, hello, guys, did you not know that why would you ever grant him a medical exemption when you know he's going to be coming into the country? You know that his visa is going to show that he's not vaccinated because he's clearly said, I'm not vaccinated. So why would you let this happen? That's my whole thing. You know, whether you think Novak should be vaccinated, shouldn't be vaccinated. I mean, I've got opinions. I personally think numbers are numbers and the numbers don't lie. If you get vaccinated, it's safer for everybody. It spreads less. And if you get sick, if you're vaccinated, typically you get less sick. So like Rafa said, which I like that he said this, you know, the world has suffered enough. The rules are clear. If you get double vaccinated, you definitely can play and avoid all this controversy. But Novak's got his opinions. They could be, I don't know why he doesn't want to get vaccinated. It could be religion. It could be that, you know, I mean, earlier in his career, he had a certain diet that wasn't working and everything. And then he figured out, hey, if I have this certain diet and I'm really strict with what I put in my body, I play incredible tennis and I have incredible endurance. And, you know, he doesn't want to mess with that, doesn't want to put something in his body that he's not sure about. I respect that too. He gets a medical exemption. Now, what I can understand, what I'm being best information I have on the medical exemption is that the reason he has it is because he recently had COVID. So they gave him a medical exemption. Is that right? Is that why he got the medical exemption? That seems to me to be weird, why you would give a medical exemption because of that reason, that you just had COVID. Maybe it means that, I don't know. Is it that you can't get it again within 6 months? I don't know if we all know that at this point. But regardless, he got a medical exemption. And now, according to the Australian Open, and you're allowed to play. But the country's saying you're not allowed to come on in. And I don't understand how they could possibly not be working hand in hand to coordinate together. And this is where I find the major fumbling of the football is how can you have such a big event, one that has such history on the line, a major international star that dominates your biggest event that you hold, and get it wrong to where there's a miscommunication between any entity at all. You know, I think it would either be everybody should be working in orchestra like this. Novak's not playing. You know, it's sad. He's not playing. There's no way we're going to give him any hope. And we're not giving him medical exemption, and he's not allowed to come into the country. And that's it. You know, of course, people would still have opinions on that, but it'd be a lot, you know, less muddled. People would know, okay, he's not coming. He's not, there's no chance. And that's that, you know, and you can either be for or against that. But to give this guy some kind of hope that he's going to play and to give him an exemption and saying, okay, come on in. I would think everybody knows he's coming. How in the world does this guy show up? And then once he comes, they say, no, you can't come in here. And he gets put, he's like being in some kind of hotel where they have like detainees there. You know, I don't know how bad it is. I mean, some people make it sound like he's in prison. I don't know. I obviously can't see inside his room and what his conditions are. But I just find this extremely unfortunate and embarrassing for Novak, embarrassing for the Australian government, and embarrassing for the Australian Open. Like, how could they mess it up this bad? How can you mess it up? How can you have this much miscommunication uh, with something that's such a big deal? You know, they take COVID very serious. I'm sure they take the Australian Open very serious. I'm sure everybody knows who Novak Djokovic is and that he wins it there almost every year. How can there be any kind of grayness about this? How can they mess this up? I find this to be inexcusable, really, by the Australian government, the Australian Open. I think it should have been black and white. Either A, we want Novak to play because he's an international star, and we're gonna make this exemption for him, because of who he is and because of what he represents and because of the history on the line and all. Let's face it, all the tickets and interest he would build by coming to play. We're gonna let him play. Okay, that's inconsistent with the rules and what everybody else is going through. So I'm sure a lot of Australians would still be upset. I'm sure a lot of Australians would also be happy, saying, gosh, we want him to play. We're tired of all these restrictions. But I'm sure, of course, naturally, there'd be a lot of Australians upset saying, look, I've been living with this. I've had to follow the rules. We've got our numbers way down. It sets a bad tone to let the guy come in and play. I understand both sides. What I cannot understand is how you can mess it up this bad, because now no one looks good. Now Novak looks bad, and the people who don't like Novak are going to really hate him and, call him entitled and privileged, and, it's special rules for the elite, and, kind of F you, Novak, you shouldn't be allowed to come here. And that will tarnish his reputation. I think he's had some other unfortunate incidents that not necessarily 100% his fault, but he certainly played a role in it that has people not liking Novak. But you see how important it is for Novak to be liked. When he was losing at the U.S. Open, and he started to cry at the very end because it touched him how the crowd responded in a favorable way. So obviously it's important for him to be loved. Everybody likes to be loved and liked and accepted. And so I don't think it's fair that Novak should be demonized on this. He's been very clear and consistent what he believes in, what he wants to do. He says, I don't want to get vaccinated, but I want to play. Now, I'm 100% fine with the Australian government, Australian Open, saying, okay, Novak, that's fine. That's your stance. Our stance is when you come into our house, you got to be double vaccinated, so you can't come in. Don't even think about it. End of story. That, I think, would have been the best way to handle it, given the rules that Australia has. I just think it's weird that you have a medical exemption, but yet anybody who's going to come into the country, they're not double vaccinated, they're not allowed in. Well, you would know anybody going for medical exemption is not vaccinated. So how can those two rules even exist? I don't understand it. If someone could explain that to me, I would really, really appreciate it. So let's see what your comments are based off of my mini rant. My rant's kind of also has a lot of questions in it. So if you guys have any answers, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so Anypug Tennis says rules are rules and should not play and banned from the Australian Open. I think I agree. Rules are rules, and they're like, you shouldn't play, then you shouldn't play. Then we have Esco TV saying, yes, Nadal is playing. He won today in Melbourne. Okay, great. I'm glad Nadal is playing. So happy to see Nadal back on the. I lost you guys a second. So Nadal is playing. That's great. I'm done with tennis if Novak is not allowed to play. That's interesting. Why are you done with tennis if Novak's not allowed to play? I wouldn't be done with tennis if they just in the beginning said you don't have an exemption. Rules are rules. These are our rules in Australia. You're not allowed to come on in. We're sorry, Novak. If you want to play, you got to get vaccinated. I would have been fine with that if that was, because then that would be consistent with what they're doing over there. But to give an exemption and then have all this happen, I'm annoyed. I'm frustrated, and I feel bad mostly at this point for Novak. I mean, at this point, what they did, giving an exemption and then basically make an example out of him and putting him into kind of like a detention center hotel. I think that should never have happened. Novak should play. It'll be the most exciting, most watched major event ever, but he will just get deported. So somebody's opinion is like he should play. It will give a lot of attention. It will be very interesting if he is allowed to play. I'm very curious if he does play, how much of the crowd would be cheering for him and how much of the crowd will be booing for him. Certainly will lead to very exciting and interesting TV. Not necessarily something I look forward to seeing anybody go through. I really would hate to see Novak go on the court if they do let him play and then everybody's booing him. I don't think that would be fair. I don't think that would be right. I understand, the reasoning behind being upset and the temptation to boo, which I don't think is very classy, is saying, "Hey, look, we've gone through all the rules. We're not happy that you're here, and you got treated, a special case." But he is special. He's number one in the world. He's maybe the greatest tennis player of all time. He's the most winning singles player at the Australian Open, and he's going for a record. So sorry, world. You got to wake up. He is a special case. You can't deny that he's not special. Some people are more special than others. He is more special than me. Okay. Those people don't get treated the same as the rest of us. That's just the way the world works. It always has. It always will. Okay. Gord R says he should not be allowed in the country. This is self-inflicted. He shouldn't win his appeal. If he plays, he won't be at his best, missing all this practice. It'll be interesting. Will he be at his best or not? Novak is, he gets a fire in his belly. It was interesting. Of all people, Nick Kyrgios, who's been very tough on Novak, kind of came to his defense, and he's been very much behind, the Australian regulations, but he doesn't like the way it's handled either. And he says, "Man, if Novak plays, I don't want any part of him because he's going to come out on a mission." So he might play great. I do agree with, if you're just going by the rules, he shouldn't have been allowed in the country. But why in the world would he be allowed to apply for this medical exemption? I don't get it. I really don't. They invited him. He follows the rules. Right. That's exactly what I think. People can say rules are rules, but he played within the rules. He's like, "Okay, I'm not going to get vaccinated, but you have this one rule where I can send in for medical exemption, and if I get accepted, I'm allowed to play," right? I'm sure he did everything on his end according to what he had to do. So Novak's sitting somewhere in a hotel going, "I followed the rules you guys gave me. Yes, I said I'm not going to get vaccinated, but you did leave an open door. You did leave a loophole, which is applying for medical exemption. You gave it to me. What's the problem?" And that's where I am on Novak's side. It's like you somehow left this wiggle room there. It's legal for him to apply for it. You granted it. Why are you now doing this? I don't get that at all. I don't get it. Australia, you messed up on that. You messed up. From what I understand, his exemption approval was fraudulent by application or Tennis Australia. What was fraudulent about it? Okay, that's a big statement there, Annie Pug Tennis. What was the fraudulent thing he did? I can't imagine what fraudulent claim he could have made. That would be very interesting. If he's got a fraudulent application where he knowingly lied about something, then that changes everything that everybody's saying out there right now in the world, on social media, in the news. If he somehow did apply and lied intentionally, not miss some check in a box, something that you can go to and just, don't do that. I want it to be like no, I don't want it to be. The only way I would go back and take the Australian Open government, the Australian Open and the Australia's government take their side is if there was some knowingly fraudulent thing on Novak's application. I've never heard that. Never have I heard that. Okay, so Ashwin says Novak's medical exemption was that he got COVID within 6 months. Generally, if you get COVID, you can't get Oh, vaccinated soon after, not good for the body. That's the reason to have the medical exemption. Now that makes sense. So if he hadn't gotten vaccinated and then you get COVID and then your reason is, well, I can't, even if I could get vaccinated, I really can't because I just got sick and it's not good for the body. I understand then giving the medical exemption. I just don't even know why they would leave room for a medical exemption, to be honest. Ali says he can't be allowed to play. The Australian federal government decides. I just got to turn this off. It's my girlfriend calling. I will call her back. Just going to power this off. Sorry, we're in the middle of an important conversation. So Ali says he can't be allowed to play. The Australian federal government decides who enters, and Novak didn't have a valid exemption according to the rules. Simple. Ali, not that simple. This guy's a major international celebrity. How in the world could the Australian Open, the Victorian, local government, and Australia as a whole not coordinate and be on the same page as this? How in the world could they have not? I mean, this is a big deal, and this has been coming down the pike for a long time. Everybody knew that this was a scenario, that Novak probably was not going to get vaccinated, that Novak wants to play, and that Novak wants to go for the Grand Slam record. So I don't give the Australian government any pass and like, well, it's simple. They're just following the rule. They should all have been on the same page. They should have seen the application, go, well, Novak's not playing, so we're just going to have to shut it down here. To leave it open and he's on a plane coming in, and then to have this happen to where like, oh, you should have known better, Novak. It's like, you gave me an exemption. So I don't think it's that simple as Ali is stating, even though I love Ali. Okay. All right. So next one. Tennis says, incompetence. As soon as two different institutions are involved in terms of immigration, they don't coordinate. Own experience from U.S. immigration. Yeah, I mean, that's a thing too. Like, is it simply a matter of incompetence? Like, oh, like we had no idea that this might be a situation. I mean, how do they not coordinate and talk this out? It's, is it incompetence? It's definitely incompetence to some degree, but is it like, just like, oh, that's just too bad. They just weren't on the same page and they just didn't know any better. I don't know if I buy that. I mean, you would think that this would be a very high level thing that everybody should know about over there, that this guy is going to come and want to play, and it's a big deal. December 16th was the date he tested positive. Okay. He was given the wrong info by Tennis Australia. They messed up. Yeah. I mean, Tennis Australia, they should have, again, but even if Tennis Australia did this, they should have never it should have never gotten that far. Everybody should have been on the same page. That's what I don't understand. Tennis Australia, if they're going to give them the exemption, as soon as that happened, there should have, the Australian government should have said, whoa, 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 you got to take that exemption back. Like, no way, because he's not getting in. Like, there's no way they should have allowed him to get on the plane if they knew this was going to happen once he got off the plane. There's no way Novak should have been on that plane if this was going to be the result. It should have never gotten this far. However, he was seen maskless in public. Where was he in public? How many people were around? He was seen maskless in public on December 17th. I'm not even going to get into that. Obviously not the smartest thing to do, but I'm not going to get into that. And I don't want to demonize Novak here. Let me just be clear. I have no problem with Australia saying our rules are we're keeping our numbers down, so you must be double vaccinated to enter the country. I completely understand that. I don't necessarily know all the reasons why Novak won't get vaccinated. He had plenty of time to get vaccinated. I don't know if it's a religious belief. I don't know if there's something legit going on within his body that he's discovered that he's afraid that if he gets vaccinated, something could happen. At this point, my personal belief is, hey, get vaccinated. the numbers don't lie. Your chances of getting COVID go way, way up if you're not vaccinated. Your chance of getting very, very sick go way, way up if you're not vaccinated. I mean, it's pretty clear. Okay. In the beginning, like for maybe the first month or so, since it was so new, I was afraid to get vaccinated. I'm like, well, how do they know? They're saying it's 97% effective. Like, the vaccines just come out. How do you know that? But the more I follow the numbers and you just see the way things are going, you realize, okay, you should do this to protect yourself, your family, other people around you. That's my personal opinion. Okay. I still love Novak Djokovic. I'm still way, way open minded to, of course, I'm never going to sit down with Novak, but I'm way, way open minded for Novak to sit down and tell me all the reasons why he doesn't want to get vaccinated. I don't think he's been very clear on that. Not necessarily they has to be, but it sure would be nice, especially since this is all happening, what his big reason is for not getting vaccinated, other than it's like, well, it's my personal choice. That's kind of weak. It's like, I think you have to say more than it's my personal choice, in my opinion, when so much right on the line for the entire world. It means a lot that you can't have the vaccine soon after that, as I understand it. Yeah, it means that you can't have your vaccine. Okay. If I own a restaurant, I'm not required to offer gluten-free foods. You may have a good sensitivity, but I'm not required to change my menu at a restaurant. Exactly. I mean, I don't think Australia should have to change the rules for Novak, but they shouldn't have left any wiggle room open. That's my opinion. Let's see if we have any more insight here. Some other players in the same situation as Novak were indeed admitted into the country. So either incompetence or, yeah. Okay. Naturally acquired immunity. Novak has it. The government bowed to public opinion, election looming. Yeah, I mean, it could totally be that you had all this outrage from the public saying, hey, wait, I've been locked up for a long time. I followed all the rules. I'm double vaccinated. I wear my mask when I'm out. I do all this stuff. I am PO'd that Novak, who is not a citizen, just a great tennis player, gets this exemption just so he can go, get his trophy, get his millions of dollars, and set the record. I understand the Australian people being upset with that. But my opinion is you shouldn't let the Australian people have to even have this opinion, right? You should have been, since you've been doing this to your people, and maybe it is best that you're protecting them. I mean, hey, if their numbers are down, deaths are down, I give a lot of respect to that. So that was your reason behind, being as strict as you were. That's fine. Everybody handles it different. So you shouldn't have had any wiggle room in there. That's my opinion. You shouldn't even have had a situation to where the people could get up in arms and go, hey, what's going on here? This isn't fair. It just isn't fair now, because I don't think that it's going to be fair that all these people now really don't like Novak even more. I mean, Novak, I think it was last year or the year before when they were having all those fires, Novak gave $1 million of his prize money to Australia. Novak, I do believe is, and again, I don't know him personally, but what I've seen, I think he's a good person. He's, there was a tournament he won when Serbia was going through a lot of trouble, and he gave all of his prize money to Serbia. He's given a lot to charity. I've seen him firsthand be on a court after practice and treat everybody around him with respect, sign autographs, take his hat off, put it on a kid, smile at him. I've seen tons of videos on YouTube. I've seen him come into a press conference and give all the chocolates, a bunch of chocolates out to the press. I mean, he just seems like generally a good person. Yes, of course, sometimes he throws his racket, loses his temper, but you know what? I've done that too, and so, sometimes when you're competitive, you handle stress differently. So, I overall really like Novak. I'm not in agreement with the situation not to get vaccinated, but that doesn't mean I don't like him. I really do like him. I think he should have been vaccinated, given people look up to him as a role model. Yes, I agree that I think if you're just looking at it just like that, I think he should have got vaccinated. But yet we never sat down with him. he might have a very strong religious reason why he doesn't get vaccinated. I don't know. He might have a very personal fear based on the knowledge he has about his body that the vaccine, some people, even though the vaccine has worked for the masses, okay, we're just talking in general, and we're just talking for the masses, and we're just talking about the numbers. If you get vaccinated, it's better for the world, okay? It's better for you personally. It's better for your family. It's better for the people around you. Yes. But there have been people who have got vaccinated who have had a very, very bad reaction to it. Okay. Scary reactions to it. Maybe there's something that he knows about his body that we don't know to where he's like, man, if I get vaccinated, there's a strong chance that that might happen. If I get COVID because I'm like fit as a fiddle, there's a strong chance that I'm going to be less sick than getting vaccinated. That might be his opinion. But at the same time, that doesn't stop that, yeah, Novak, you might not get that sick, but if you have it, especially if you're asymptomatic, you don't know all the people you might give it to and their health situation. Novak, you might be healthy, but you give it to somebody who's not healthy and they may pass away because you got it, were able to fight it off, no problem. You might not even know you have it and give it to somebody who isn't as strong as you. So that's why I do think he should be vaccinated overall. That's my opinion. But at the same time, he's been very clear on what he's going to do. Australia, not clear at all what they were going to do. They're going to say, they didn't really say Novak can play, Novak can't play. They weren't very strong with that. And then they said, okay, here's your exemption. Now you come in the country. Now you can't come in. To me, they messed up the most out of everybody in this whole thing. It's political. Australian PM needs to look tough because he knows that the Aussie public are pissed off with all the restrictions. And I'm sure that, it's a lightning rod. I'm sure there's millions of Australians who are mad because, like, this is overboard. You're affecting my business. You're affecting my freedom. You're affecting my lifestyle. I think we've gone too far as a country with the restrictions. There's those people, and I'm sure there's also millions and millions of people who are in their country going, I'm proud of my country. We stood up. We got vaccinated. I think it's 92% of their country's vaccinated, which, I wish in the United States, I wish 92% of our country is vaccinated. And they have low infection rate, a much lower death toll than a lot of the world. So that's hard to argue against. Tennis Australia and Djokovic, his team messed up. No one comes out here looking good. Why did Djokovic mess up? Djokovic messed up by not getting vaccinated, but he said he wasn't going to get vaccinated. And he was given the chance to put in an exemption, and he got it. So why did he mess up? I don't think Novak messed up. I think Tennis Australia messed up and the Australian government messed up. You knew what this guy's individual opinion was for a long time. You shouldn't have given him any chance. It's like you want to date somebody and they don't like you and they keep giving you these breadcrumbs thinking like, hey, okay, it's like saying yes, that I'll go to the movies with you on Friday night. And then Friday night comes, and you're like, no, I'm not going to go to the movies with you. I was just kidding the whole time. You had no chance with me. If that's literally what Australia's plan was the whole time, this should have never come this far. That's my opinion. He should have had the 2 to 3 jabs. Yes, he should have. I agree that he should have. But the thing that we don't know, does anybody know who was criticizing Novak? Does anybody know? Because I don't think he's been clear on this. I wish he'd be more clear. Does anybody know Novak, besides it's my personal choice, does anybody know Novak's exact detailed reasoning behind not wanting to get vaccinated? For example, there's a person who is one of my online followers, and she is afraid of the vaccine because her brother, when he was younger, got a vaccination. I forget which one it was, but he got vaccinated, nothing to do with COVID, way before COVID. He got a shot, reacted very badly to it, and he passed away. Okay. That was her situation. So she's afraid to death of getting the shot. Can you really get mad at her for that? Can you just tell her to grow up? Suck it up? No. I mean, that's a very her brother died after a shot. Okay? I'm not, because my opinion is to get vaccinated. I'm not going to look down on her and say, "Well, you're just being ridiculous. You're just being a baby." I can't do that after hearing that story. I don't know Novak's story. I wish I knew his story more. If anybody knows his complete story, his complete reasoning, other than it's my personal choice, then I would like to know that. I do think at this point, since it's come so far, he probably should give us a little more detail on that. If he was granted a visa to come, there's nothing wrong for him to do that. If there's anything to blame, should be on Tennis Australia or the Australian government. I agree, Jared. That's what I agree with. Ollie says it's the biggest PR disaster for Novak for an elite player in decades. This is where we're going, Ollie. I'm glad you said this. This is a PR disaster for Novak. And, as an individual person, he's going to face all kinds of ridicule. And that's what I foresee happening. And I hate to see this. I'm afraid when he goes on the court, he's going to come out to a chorus of boos, of threats, of hate that I don't think he should have to go through, because he's been clear in his stance. I don't think this should have happened. I have to take a drink. I'm about to kind of cough here. Whether that's his fault, that's another thing, but doesn't change that it's a disaster for him. Ollie, that's where we're 100% agreement on. This is a major disaster for Novak, and I don't think it's fair. I don't think that this should be another reason for people to hate Novak Djokovic. That's maybe the point that I want mostly to come out of this broadcast, is I don't think it's a good reason to hate Novak for this, because he has been clear of where he stands, and he was given an opportunity to apply for medical exemption, which he got. So if I am Novak Djokovic, okay, I'm not Novak Djokovic. Obviously, I'm not near the tennis player he is. I'm not near the celebrity he is. And I got double vaccinated. Those are the differences. But if I am Novak Djokovic, if I'm him and I applied for something, and then people said, "Okay, we accept it. You're good to go." It would be just completely bizarre and shocking to arrive, and then they say, "No, you can't come on in." I would feel like, well, if you weren't going to let me in, just tell me that to begin with. Yeah, I'll be at home. I'll be pissed. I'll be throwing stuff against the wall. But, I mean, I wouldn't have gotten on a plane. I wouldn't have come here. I wouldn't have blown this way out of proportion like it is. Like, I would be so mad if I was Novak, and I would feel so betrayed. And I do think that at this point, Novak is the victim here. If you would have said no in the beginning, Tennis Australia, the Australian government, you just said flat out no, you're not coming in, rules are rules, then I would be fine with it. I probably wouldn't even done a live stream on it. I probably would have just been, okay, I get it. It's their house. They're saying you can't come into my house. These are the rules of the house. You can't come on in, right? I get that. I respect that. But to let it go this far, terrible. There's no excuse, whether it's incompetence or whether it's like backtracking. They got a lot of backlash, like, whoa, 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 Australia, what are you doing? How are you letting this guy in after you've been locking me in my house for like the last 2.5 years? How are you letting this guy come in to our house? That's not fair. And then all of a sudden the Australian government goes, whoa, 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 all right. When he gets off the plane, we got to send him home because this is turning out bad for us. I have a feeling that's what happened, and that's terrible. That's inexcusable. You should have never let that come that far. My opinion. Just my opinion. Djokovic didn't mess up. He was given the visa by the feds, then dealt with the border force upon boarding the plane, then arrived in Australia and got screwed. 100% agree with you, right? I mean, he applied, he got his medical exemption, he's got his visa. He was on one side of the plane and was able to get into the plane and able to fly there. And then he gets there and then all hell breaks loose. Never, ever should have happened. Never. Not when it's such a big deal. You knew this was coming. You should have had your ducks in a row way before. You can't leave this thing to chance. It's either yes or no, not maybe. It's either yes or no, guys, not maybe. Right? And the problem is they gave him a yes, and now they're giving him a no. Crazy. Crazy. Not right. Not right. All good points, Pete, says Michael Osborne. Thank you. If you like my points, give this video a like. Comment on it if you're watching later. I certainly want to hear everybody's opinion. So original people overseas couldn't enter the country to either deal with sick people or deal with relatives passing. Come on now. Okay. I don't get that. I don't know what you're talking about there, Daniel. The government has their rules to enter the country. Then Tennis Australia tried to generate their own rules. Incorrect. Yeah, I mean, if is that what happened? And I don't know how Tennis Australia could possibly do this, but my thing also is once Tennis Australia did this, I would have to think, my opinion is Tennis Australia and the Australian government at first said, let's let them play. This is a lot of revenue. This is history. Let's let them play. That's what I think. Of course, I certainly don't know. I can't imagine Tennis Australia would have just gone completely rogue on this and said, well, everything will turn out fine. And even if they did, it was announced that he was given an exemption. That the Australian government, if that's really what happened, that Tennis Australia went rogue and completely on their own, the Australian government did have time to say, whoa, Tennis Australia, incorrect. This guy's not getting on the plane. He's not coming over here. You can't do that. Novak, stay at home until we work this out. And the answer is going to be no, Novak, just stay home. That's what should have happened. That's what should have happened. The Australian government had the time to say, foul, Tennis Australia, you can't do that. The dude's not coming. Novak, stay home. Forget it. It's not going to happen. That's what should have happened. I don't think they did until he got there, to the best of my knowledge. To the best of my knowledge. The feds never gave him the exemption. Yeah, but they knew he got the exemption. Come on, this is a big story. As soon as he got the exemption, it was on everybody's phone. It went on my phone. I'm sure it came on your phone. I was next to a coach. It got on his phone. They all knew. They knew he was given the exemption. And then he got on a plane like the next day or so. So within that time, almost immediately, I'm sure it came on the Australian government's phone. I'm sure they weren't like, oh, I didn't know this happened, right? Come on. This is their biggest event. I'm sure they knew. They let him get on the plane. They as soon as it came across their phone, they should have said, whoa, wait, hey, Tennis Australia. No, it's not happening. Call Novak up and tell him not to get on the plane. That's what should have happened. There shouldn't even be these stupid medical exemptions. If you're going to be tight on this thing in Australia, then just go all the way and no medical exemptions. Why? Why leave any room for interpretation? If that's the way you're going to run your government, I don't see any room for it, any reason to have it. I don't think it should be allowed. In every airport where there are direct flights to Australia, there are border force officials. They allowed him to board plane to Australia, and then they screwed him once he arrived. Yes, that's another thing. I don't know. I already loads of people are turned away, and then when they arrive in the country, as the Fed said, it's up to the traveler legally. That's what the appeal is about. Who invited Tennis Australia, not the Australian government? He didn't follow the rules. I don't know. I'm confused. I think he did follow the rules, based on what he knew to do. Novak did everything Tennis Australia told him to do. Unfortunately, Tennis Australia does not run the country. Yes, but see, that's the thing. It's like, it's sad that they have to learn it this way. Tennis Australia doesn't run the country, but it's the Australian Open, and the government and Tennis Australia should be coordinating as an orchestra, and they should know every move. And if somebody steps out of line, then to me, it's the Australian government's duty to immediately correct the mistake instantly. That's where I fault the Australian government. I clearly fault Tennis Australia, but I also fault the Australian government because if they did this, immediately should be corrected. Immediately, instantly, which can happen. It could have been corrected instantly. They could have said, hey, Tennis Australia is smoking something funny over there. There's no way in hell Novak's getting in the country. Novak, or sorry they did this. I don't know how they did this, but they did. It's not going to happen. How could that not have happened? Why did that not happen? Okay, let's see here. Tennis Australia is not the Australian government. That's true. Okay, we keep hearing the same thing. Tennis Australia ignored the Australian government written warning. The Australian government screwed up, not Novak. I agree with that. If you're not anti-science, anti-vaccine denier, then you're on Djokovic's side. Pete, sorry, you don't seem to understand how the government and rules work. How do I not understand it? I mean, I have no problem with the government saying you can't come and play. No problem with that. I have no problem with them making that decision. But I don't understand. Yeah, I guess I don't understand how government works. Well, they need to do better. The government needs to do better because if they have any of their entities, the Australian Open and the Australian government, they're not completely separate. There's so much money happening. This is such a big worldwide event. They're coordinated on this to some degree. And if Tennis Australia went rogue, that's obviously a strike on them. But my opinion, which unless someone can clearly explain, is why couldn't the Australian government have shut that exemption down sooner before he got on a plane? That's the problem I have, is having Novak have egg on his face after you gave him the exemption. That's my only issue. My issue isn't with the government saying, hey, these are our rules. I have no problem with that. I have no problem respecting those rules. Everyone on the same page does not work in real life. Everyone has their own agenda and their own work inside. Yes, but it's Novak frickin' Djokovic. Look, if it's me entering the country, like if I got some exemption from like a tennis club in Australia, right? And then I show up and the Australian government says, how did you get here? Why are you here? You're not vaccinated. And I say, well, this club, the club, your local club said I could come. And they're like, well, sorry, we didn't hear anything about that. You're not allowed in. I would go, okay, I understand. I'm like, nobody. So, I mean, I'd still be pissed. I'm sure I'd still have a tantrum. But at the end of the day, when I calm down, I'd have to logically think, okay, I'm nobody. So I could see how somehow these idiots at the tennis club in Australia said I could come anyway. And I really couldn't because the government was never going to let me in. I could see that happening because I'm nobody. I can't see Novak going, oh, well, these are just separate situations. The Tennis Australia said they'd come. The government, no one really coordinated, knew about it. It's just like they don't all work together. You got to be realistic about that. No, I'm sorry. Novak Djokovic, 9-time Australian Open champion, 20 Grand Slam winner, going for the record, going for his 10th Aussie Open. Everybody knows about this crap. Everybody. So to say like, well, it was just slipping through the cracks because it's not the government's responsibility to know everything the Tennis Australia is doing and the decisions they made, I don't buy that for 1 second. And if that's the way it is, it shouldn't be that way. It's Novak Djokovic. It's the Australian Open. The guy's won there 9 times. The guy gave $1 million to your country. You should know. If you're not going to let him in, treat him better with more respect and say, there's no way. Novak, there's no chance, buddy. We love you, dude. Don't get on the plane. That's what should have happened. Novak should have not attempted Flat Earth Society meeting on 22nd if he knew he was positive. Okay. I don't know what that is, so I'll look into that afterwards. Being seen maskless in public has nothing to do with the issue. People are so stupid. Well, yeah, he shouldn't have gone out there maskless. I'm not saying that that's a bad look. He shouldn't do it. It's careless. I don't like to hear that. I haven't seen the video. I haven't seen the pictures. I did hear about that he went maskless in public when he was COVID positive. To me, that's weird because Novak does seem to care a lot about people. He also cares if people like and accept him. So I don't know why he does that. And that individual act, I completely am against. I think that was a stupid move by Novak, a careless move, if that is indeed what happened. But at the same time, I think that is a separate issue. It's a bad look for Novak, and shame on Novak for doing that. But to me, it's a separate issue than him applying to Tennis Australia. Tennis Australia is saying, yes, you can come, and then being turned down when he gets there. I think that's a separate issue. It's a witch hunt. You shouldn't tell him to get vaccinated. You're not his doctor. I'm not his doctor. And if we're talking about in general, Timmy Time, in general, people should get vaccinated in general because the numbers have shown if you get double vaccinated, less people around you are going to get sick. Less people around you are going to get as sick. You're less likely to get sick. If you do get sick, you're less likely to get seriously sick. These are all facts, guys. These are just the facts. And if you do get vaccinated, you're less likely to give it to another person. Although there's no foolproof thing for this. That's why COVID is so confusing. But those are the facts. Now, I have said several times on this broadcast, if you need to go back and listen, I said, but I don't know Novak's situation, and I am more than open-minded to give him some benefit of the doubt. It could be a very strong religious belief. It could be that he has met with a doctor. We know that he had issues early on in his career. He had some physical limitations early in his career that he corrected, and that's why he's the greatest player ever, in my opinion, because he was able to figure out what his physical issues were and fix them. There could be something in there that he knows that, hey, man, if I get vaccinated, I'm giving a high probability that something funky might come back into my body, or that I might have something. I could be at risk. I could be at serious risk of something bad. I don't know what that is, right? Because I'm not his doctor. I don't know. That could be there. He has not come out, though, and said that that's the reason, which it would be nice if he did. I mean, I really wish the people who are against the vaccination would be more specific than it's a personal choice. I'm still doing research on it. I still need to do more research on it. There should be, you should, if you're going to do that and you're a big public figure and with how much is on the line, like Rafa Nadal said, people have suffered enough. I think if you're going to make a stand against it, and you're this big a deal, and especially if you want to come play in Australia, you don't have to, but it would be nice to let the people know specifically in great detail why you don't agree with getting vaccinated. I would like to see that. But again, if you're watching this broadcast, I'm more on Novak's side because I don't think it should have ever come this far. How would the government know Tennis Australia's grace on the I guess gave the exemption? How would they how would the government not know? Do you think the government knows that the Australian Open's going on? Do you think they know the revenue that the Australian Open brings in and the tax revenue it brings in? Do you think they don't know that at all? Do you think that they're not? Do you think the government doesn't have anything to do with the Australian Open? Are you kidding me? Come on, the government should know. The government should know that he got the exemption from Tennis Australia. You know, to act like, oh, we didn't know and he just got here and we'd had to deal with it. That is bullcrap. There's no way. There's no way. Don't have to be vaccinated, just stay home. That's true. See, that's what Francisco, I agree with you. If it would have been that Tennis Australia and the Australian government, the best, obviously, looking back, hindsight's 2020, but I don't know why it could have been simpler, is if it was this clear, like, Novak, we respect your right not to get vaccinated, but our rules are you don't come in the country unless you're double vaccinated. We wish you'd get vaccinated, but if you don't, there's zero chance for you to play here. That should have been it. That should be it. I support that 100%. Again, just like if I walk into someone's house, they're like, hey, our rules are, if you want to come into our house, you got to take off your shoes. I realize it's not quite the same comparison, but at the same time, if I come into someone's house and like, hey, you got to take your shoes off, even though in my house you can walk around the house with your shoes on, I'm going to respect that and say, okay, I get it. I'm going to take my shoes off. Otherwise, if I'm so strong in belief that I have to keep my shoes on, I guess I'm not coming in your house. I'm not going to sit there and run around the house with dirty shoes. Talk to Jeremy Shardy about vaccines. He got the vaccine and nearly died from side effects. Had to suspend his 2021 season. May never play again. Okay, Marlene, this is a big point. And this is what I said early in the broadcast too. Even though I think vaccinations are good for the world, and if we're just talking about statistics and numbers, you should get vaccinated. But it's another thing to just be so, stick in the mud saying, the buck stops here. Everyone should get vaccinated. There certainly are cases to where people got vaccinated and they had a terrible, terrible experience. So I'll look up this Jeremy Shardy story, and I agree. If Novak felt like he might be Jeremy Shardy, based on the research he's done and knowing his body, and he's like, I'm afraid. I respect that. I've got no problem with that. Doesn't mean that he should automatically be allowed to come into Australian play, but I respect his opinion not to get vaccinated if that is a legit fear of his. Because there have definitely been cases. Eric Clapton got vaccinated, and he said he couldn't feel his hands for like 3 or 4 months, and he was afraid he'd never be able to play guitar again. So you can't deny, if you believe in the vaccines, you can't also deny the other side when they said, look, there's been cases where it turned out terrible for people, because it has. Okay? In general, I believe in vaccines. I believe in this vaccine, but definitely you can't say that it hasn't gone bad for some individual people. So I hear you, Marlene, and I'm glad that you made that very individual point. And I don't know the Jeremy Shardy story. I will definitely look that up. Novak is not very smart when it comes to world health. Tennis Australia were sent a letter from the government mid-November clearly saying, okay, this is interesting. Tennis Australia's, they were sent a letter from the government mid-November clearly saying infection with COVID would not be sufficient grounds for medical exemption. TA better get their lawyers ready. Okay, Alex, I like that. Yeah. So, I mean, if the government said that, here's my thing. If the government said that, shame on Tennis Australia for giving Novak hope. Not shame on Novak for applying for the medical exemption and getting it. That's not Novak's fault. And then I'll go back to the government. I don't think it's a good enough reason to say, well, we said in November to Tennis Australia, So therefore, when he got on the plane and got to our country, we did what we did. My point is, it's such a big deal. This has been coming down the pike under a microscope for months. As soon as Tennis Australia made their announcement of the exemption, the Australian government, and to the best of my knowledge, they didn't. If they did, I apologize. They should have come on TV. They should have called Novak. They should have called Tennis Australia. They should have done everything in their power to say, wait, hold the phone. Novak, don't get on the plane. Tennis Australia made a big mistake. Don't come over here. You can't say, well, it's not their responsibility. People are just doing their job as he came on in. I don't buy that. You know this guy's coming. You know how big a deal this is. He showed his carelessness when he did the COVID tour he tried to put on. What a disgrace. Yes, that was terrible. That was, again, Novak has done some things. Novak to me is like the Larry David of tennis. It's like he sticks his foot in his mouth, and it's his own foot he's putting in his mouth. He's made some really dumb decisions. And so it's like, sometimes it's like half his fault, half not his fault. Like when he turned around and he's not looking, he hits the ball woman, and she goes down, which he should have been defaulted for. And he ends up looking terrible for that. And he paid the price. He should have been defaulted. But I don't think he meant to hit her. But at the same time, I remember him being in an interview and they said, hey, don't you think like you're close to the line? Don't you think, if you keep doing this, somebody might get hurt? And he laughed it off like, no, they won't. Like, you're ridiculous. But at the end of the day, he ended up being wrong on that. And he ended up hurting somebody. So, Novak certainly has not made the best decisions on some very public things that ended up coming back to haunt him. But again, he lives under a microscope. I can't point to anything specifically that I've done, but I'm sure if I was under a microscope, I would do some things to where you guys would be saying, man, Pete's an idiot. How could he be so stupid? Like, if you live under a microscope, there's going to be, and you live your whole life under a microscope, there's going to be things you do that people are going to say, that guy's an idiot. I mean, there's just the rare breed of person, like, it seems like Roger Federer. It seems like the guy could do no wrong. It seems like he always says and does the right thing. But you can't expect everybody to be just like Roger. That's not fair to people in the public light. I still overall like Novak. He's done, in my opinion, more good than bad. Read from the CDC. You can get vaccinated after recovery from COVID. Thus, he could have taken the jab. Religious and personal reasons are okay for not getting vaccinated, but not valid reasons for exemption to tennis. I agree. I totally agree. Vax is for myself, not for you. WTF? If you are vaccinated, then you're protected. So what's your problem with me? I don't understand. Did I say I had a problem with anybody? I don't quite understand that. He could have said he is afraid of needles and would have had a reason. Yeah, I mean, I think you need more than I'm afraid of needles. I think you have to be afraid of what's in the needle and have some valid reason why you're afraid of the needle. Because some people have had bad responses to this. So you're talking about people that had strong adverse effects, and yet you want to mandate everyone else to do it. Sorry, but that's dictatorship. Okay, look, guys, I'm going to end this soon because we're going round and round. But yeah, I mean, there are certain vaccines that no one seems to have an issue with. Polio shots. Most everybody's vaccinated against certain things. To bring my dog back to PetSmart, they required that I get him vaccinated again for the safety of their dogs. Okay, just because you require vaccination for the greater good of the community doesn't make you a dictatorship. Really go live in a dictatorship society and then tell me if you think we're living in a dictatorship. You know, Australia is not a dictatorship. They want to get, it's not like they want to keep their people in lockdown for they're following the numbers. And when the numbers look good, the finals of the Australian Open, the fans in the stands, they were packed. Australia is not a dictatorship. The United States is not a dictatorship. A lot of these countries that are being accused of being a dictatorship because they want their people to get vaccinated so less people will die, that's really stupid to say, in my opinion. It doesn't mean that I don't understand people having individual opinions and an adverse reasons to getting the vaccine. I understand that. Okay. But at the same time, there's rules. So we're like, hey, you can have that opinion, but you can't come in this restaurant or you can't go play this tournament. And I respect that too. Just my 2 cents. At the end of the day, I love you guys. I love Novak. I've been to Australia. I love Australia. I love tennis. I'm looking forward to a lot of great tennis. I just wish the situation didn't happen. I wish there would have been if the answer was no, going to be no, it should have been no right from the beginning, and Novak wouldn't have to go through this. I think that's probably would have been the best decision. So yeah, but I love all the dialogue, and I wish everybody a happy and safe 2022. We'll be following the Australian Open of the tennis balls being struck from now on. And it looks to me like there's lots of good tennis going on. I have seen Leylah Fernandez in action. I've seen Coco Gauff in action playing. Rafa's been in action. Andy Murray's been in action. Tsitsipas has been in action. So a lot of exciting. Emma Raducanu's been in action. Naomi Osaka, to my surprise, is actually playing well. I thought she had way too much time off. I'm surprised she's actually playing well. If you look at her Instagram, it looks like she's been doing nothing but partying and being on boats and taking photo shoots. So I'm really surprised that Naomi is playing as well. She obviously got some work in on the tennis court in between the photo shoots. So I'm happy to see that. So I think we're setting up for a lot of great tennis. I hope that all the stars, for the sake of tennis, win the first week. Please, tennis players, awesome tennis players who go to Australia, go and win so we can make this a great Australian Open. If Novak's allowed to play, fans, please don't boo him. Please don't boo him. And everybody have a great day.